anybody that's on here that doesn't know, I'm Scott Dolch. I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Restaurant Association. I really appreciate you guys taking some time here this morning to kind of go through an update for us. And then really appreciate the SBA team for really, asking them to do this in such short notice to be on here with everything that's going on with realistically the regional banks kind of opening up their portals this morning and the chaos that is coming through of another round of PPP. So it means a lot to have Wendell and Catherine and their team on. But before we get to them, we'll just kind of quickly go through my update. See if I can get. All right, that should work for everybody. Hopefully your screen can see my PowerPoint this morning. Again, like I said before, I will introduce them. I'll come back and introduce them fully in a second. I'll try to get through my part of the program as quick as I can. You guys are used to hearing me talk anyway. So from a topic standpoint, I'm just going to talk quickly about the COVID relief package as a whole, just kind of where we are since December, what has passed in that package, included with the SBA conversation, but others. As you guys probably heard, President-elect Biden will be inaugurated tomorrow. He came out with an American Rescue Plan, which I'll get into a little bit of the weeds of the detail of what that means and what either you're nervous or everyone wants to send me text about minimum wage, other things. So I'll kind of give you guys a lay of the land there. Give a quick Connecticut update, talk about the legislative session that's already started, and then we'll go right into the SBA presentation. So without further ado, I'll start a little bit on the federal update. Working with the National Restaurant Association, as you guys know, is a great partner of ours in doing so much to try to help us on a federal level and getting these COVID packages passed, but also talking on a bigger scale as there's transition of power happening down in DC. So just to talk about the COVID relief bill, the Paycheck Protection Program, first draw, second draw information that I know Catherine and Wendell are going to go into here. Everyone kind of knows that, but understand the world, as our team and lobbyists down there at the National Restaurant Association worked extremely hard to try to help our industry. This isn't a silver bullet. This relief package is another step for us in New England about helping our restaurants put them on a path towards recovery. And the Paycheck Protection Program, just starting with, which they'll talk about a little bit today, understand that it is not just 2.5 times this second go around if you're taking a second draw. It is actually 3.5 times your monthly payroll. That extra month was a lot of the efforts of the national team pushing to try to figure out ways to help restaurants and hotels in that segment of the NAICS code 72 of making sure that you guys get another month. And also the Flexibility Act, the 60/40, the 24 weeks that we had at the second kind of draw, the PPP of the first go round is in play as well. So there's a lot in the Paycheck, the PPP program that I think is going to benefit our restaurants that take advantage of it. Also tax deductibility. That was a big one as part of this relief package. You were able to write off in taxes your first PPP loan, and now you're going to be able to do the same in your second. That's a substantial amount of money. As you guys look at the grants that you received, it is not going to be taxed. We're trying to work on that on a state side, but at least on a federal side with both those programs. And then employee retention tax credit. This isn't a webinar to talk about the ERTC, but I've gotten tons of emails from our CPAs. We've got a lot of great partners, from Bill Clark at Clark Hearth, as well as Cohen Resnick and Markham sending us information. This go around, you can actually take the ERTC in the PPP as long as you don't intermingle the money. I don't want to go into the weeds of how you do that, but I highly recommend, if you haven't had this conversation with your CPA about understanding the ERTC and how it works, because you were only allowed to take PPP the first time, and this time you have a chance to especially look at the ERTC as you look to roll out in 2021 with your payroll. It is a tax credit. It is not money up front. It's how you write off your taxes down the road. But people that have taken advantage of that in the first go round that I've had conversations with, fairly easy and understandable. But obviously I lean on your CPA. If you don't have a CPA, please reach out to us. We will put you in touch with as many people as we can to kind of help answer those questions. It's something you should look at. You guys should be uncovering peeling back every piece of the onion right now about how to get as much financial support as you can. Work opportunity tax credit is there. And then the other piece to the relief package, which we're still kind of waiting on formal details, but the expanded business meal deduction, where instead of 50%, you can deduct 100% of your business meals for the next 2 years as part of this package, which hopefully will help our restaurants. And we'll try to do some things in Connecticut about trying to bring businesses back into our restaurants as much as we can. So shifting over to President-elect Biden's American Rescue Plan. This is kind of the top level stuff that was kind of released. So you guys kind of have a sense of the biggest point on the top is federal minimum wage to $15 and the elimination of the tip credit. That obviously got everyone's attention when it was talked about. This is, part of his launch as the new president here that'll go into effect tomorrow. Understand, I'm not saying don't freak out about it. Understand, yes, we're going to 15 in Connecticut. The elimination of the tip credit is a big discussion and conversation. I've already reached out to Senator Blumenthal, Murphy, and all 5 of our Connecticut delegates to try to have a one-on-one. I'm going to talk to Senator Blumenthal this afternoon to make sure they understand how the tip credit works. It's the same way we battled this on the state level of our legislators having a misconception about the tip credit and understanding that it is a starting point, but they all have to make, which is our minimum wage right now is currently $12. Every employee in our industry makes $12 the moment they walk in the door. The tip credit is a base with their tips, but if they don't get to that $12 per hour, they're paid that, and it'll go up to 15 over the next few years. So we need to make sure on a federal side, and then what that means if there was a federal increase to 15, understand it's more than doubling the minimum wage in multiple states across the country. I think that'll be interesting. That will not be, I don't think, in any kind of bill right now he'll launch. We're hearing that it's just going to be part of his plan as president, but the kind of stimulus package and additional dollars probably will not intermingle. We'll have to work through that in the House and Senate. Probably will hit one of the floors in March and April, and we'll continue to work with the national team. So that's really the biggest piece to all of this that he came out with that everyone wants to talk about in our industry. And we'll continue to work with national as much as we can to educate our legislators about our industry, how unique it is, and how it works to the benefit of our employees. And then, the productive standard with OSHA, emergency paid leave. I know we have the Connecticut paid family leave. There's some ties into both those. Liability protection for employees, employers, not just the employees, is a big conversation that's continue to be had down there. The $15 billion in grants to small businesses. There's no details of how he would do that. I know he was trying to hit 1 million businesses with grants program. We'll see how that comes out. The FEED Act is important. That was tried to be passed way back in the early fall. That's working with FEMA and our local farms and our restaurants to feed the needy and feed food banks and things of that nature, but using restaurants as a way to pay. Let's give a hypothetical, paying you guys, $20, $25 a meal so you can pay your staff, pay for the cost of food, and then providing meals. Those dollars would come directly out of FEMA. Definitely something we support. In Connecticut, Murphy is kind of carrying the torch, as well as Texas, a couple of centers down there. So we'll continue to keep you posted how that could be a benefit to a lot of restaurants in the state if it does go through. Direct checks to individuals, they want to increase it from $600 to $2,000. The unemployment insurance extension, an extra $400 a week through the end of September. Definitely something to keep an eye on. The extending of eviction and foreclosure moratoriums, and then a national vaccine program. So this is kind of what was rolled out through his team, just to kind of give you guys a lay of the land of, again, this is why I keep a pulse down there in DC about what actually is on the table. And also if there is a stimulus plan, obviously, as you can tell, there's no Restaurants Act in here as of right now. The PPP program, they're going to see how that rolls out. We'll see how the grant program for $15 billion, what that means. There's some other pieces as well, but this is kind of top line to kind of give you guys a sense of where we are on a federal side. So I'll just kind of stop, take a breath there. That's our president. That's the federal side of where we are. And then if anybody has any specific questions, it's just kind of staying tuned to the association as we move forward. With President Biden and his team and what that means in the Senate and the House. You got not only new leadership, but you've got new folks coming in, taking new seats throughout the House and Senate, and how each of these issues goes head on as we move forward. Moving on just to a state update. As I try to quickly get through this. So you guys all know there were 2 grant programs that came out of the DECD. The first was the Connecticut CARE Small Business Grant Program, $50 million. You had to apply. This is an application-only process. They gave out $5,000 grants to 10,000 businesses. That program, as I talked to David Lehman through text this morning, I believe is official all through SoFi. It's a bank transfer. I believe all of those grants have been put through, or they're waiting on the last kind of part of this batch, so it's less than 1,000 that still haven't been given out. But that was the first program, smallest of the small. And the second program was the Connecticut Business Recovery Grants Program, just something we pushed hard for as an association. Obviously, we want to see more money, but $35 million was a great first step. What it did was it gave small business grants in the state $10,000 to $30,000 grants based on hardship, based on the size of your business. It went out to 2,008 businesses, hard checks, no application process. They work with the DRS and the state to find out how much hardship you incurred. They looked at their tax numbers. They looked at the money that you had provided between January and September through the DRS to pick these 2,008 businesses. All of those checks have been mailed out. Everybody, I was found out today that a little over 60% are in that NAICS food, 72 category. So restaurants, caterers, private event venues, that their food revenues are over 50%. So I don't have the full list. I wish I did, of everyone that received it. I've gotten a lot of notes from you guys as we move forward here on these grants. Appreciative. I know it's just really a bridge to the PPP and other programs. But, we definitely need to commend the governor when there's opportunities like this, that he is helping 2,000 of the hardest hit businesses in the state. So we'll continue to push for more. I know, Randy, I see your note as you continue to talk. I know there's a lot of businesses that have been left out of this. I know if you opened a restaurant after September, you're not eligible. If you open a business during the pandemic, you're not eligible. If you open a business during the pandemic, right now you're not eligible for PPP second draw or even first draw. There's a lot of concern I have for the businesses that made this their dream to open a restaurant and are left out. So we're continuing to talk to the administration, other ways. We're trying to talk to the legislative leaders in session, other ways to make sure every business that's being hurt right now in our industry has a chance for recovery, for grants. We're also looking at a private sector entity about ready to launch a Connecticut restaurant relief program from the CRA standpoint, to ask for private donations to help us help as many restaurants as we can. So that'll be announced probably later in the week, more details on that program. And then just a couple last minute things. Connecticut vaccine rollout. We are in phase 1B. While everybody wants to get excited about that, it's exciting. Also, that list is 1.3 million people. That list grew from about 700,000 to 1.3. So we are in there. What does that mean? At least when you go on the VAM site that they created, you can put food service or restaurant employee, and you can, we're looking to see when we can start putting in the names of our employees that want to have an opportunity to go get vaccinated. They're only targeting 75 plus right now. There will be a press conference today at 4 with Deidre Gifford and others to talk more through the vaccine rollout. We are in this phase. When do we get to us in this phase? A lot of questions I'm still pushing for, but at least we know we are in this phase as we try to get back on a path to recovery. And I will continue to keep everybody posted as soon as I know more about what that means for everybody with the vaccines. But it is good news. We're not in 1C. We're not farther down the road, but 1.3 million people is a lot of people to vaccinate. But we'll work as hard as we can to get you guys the information so your staff and yourself can apply, get on the list, and hopefully get a vaccine sooner rather than later. Phase 2.1 update, just updating you guys. I know it's the question on everyone's mind. Can we get out of this phase? Can we roll forward? We got to get rid of the curfews. What's going on? Yes, you can register in VAM already. I apologize to go back to that. But just hold on that right now, Lorraine. I'm trying to get more information. It's kind of just going to be, you can't actually pick a vaccination, or if you can, they're going to turn you away because they just want to target 75 plus. So I'm trying to work with the team there at DPH to make sure we're doing it the right way and we don't flood them with 160,000 employees that are all registering at once. So keep an eye over the next few days. We'll have more details. Going back to phase 2.1. The big line there is hospitalizations. That's everything. Doesn't matter about positivity rate. Doesn't matter realistically about much else. That's what they're looking at. They've been looking at it. That's why we haven't rolled back below 50%. I'm hopeful that this week is a very good week. We're 2 weeks removed from New Year's Eve. Beyond that, we're beyond the holiday rush. Let's see if we can get hospitalizations down and have an honest conversation about what phase 3 or version of phase 3 could look like for us as early as middle of February. I'm pushing on the governor directly. If he's going to announce something, give us some lead time. It goes a long way, like we saw in the phase 3 rollout that he announced it 2 weeks ahead of time. It builds consumer confidence. So, what that means in phase 3, I don't know yet. I'm still working through curfew, capacity, event sizes, all the different things that we are restricted on right now. We are trying to see what that would look like. I will talk to the commissioner again this afternoon, but understand we are not rolling back. Please stop with the rumor mill that I love so much, that everyone loves to tell me there's a specific date we're going to roll back. The commissioner agreed again last week that there's no appetite to roll us back beyond where we are. And as we continue to move forward, I'll get to your question in a second, Juliana. And the last piece is the shared work program. I highly recommend, and we're going to try to maybe have a webinar or something specific to that. I know we have some language on our site. It's an opportunity where you can actually share the work, not with another business, but with the state, and have someone work limited hours and they're still eligible for unemployment and they're still working for you. So if you haven't utilized the shared work program or looked into it, I highly recommend that you do. I know the governor pitches that a lot, but it's something that we're going to continue to try to help you guys as you still roll through this with your staffs, limited hours, giving them an opportunity to still potentially get unemployment, but also still have a chance to keep the job with you. So that's my Connecticut update for that piece. And then just session update. Governor's emergency powers, they end on February 9th. We think they're going to be extended. Probably for another 90 days is kind of the rumor that's going around, positive rumor. I'd rather deal with the governor and his team, in my opinion, than legislative leaders to try to keep what we do with the EOs. Expanded outdoor dining as part of that emergency order, however long we go. We are looking to put a bill in that actually expands outdoor dining for up to 2 years, not just during the emergency order, but helping you guys and helping our towns allow outdoor dining in our restaurants for more than just this summer, but hopefully next summer. So we are trying to do as much as we can to expand the outdoor dining on a long-term view. To-go alcohol as well is something that a lot of states have started to pass this in a permanent level. We are having those conversations with the legislative leaders, not so much the governor. The leaders would have to pass that bill and what that means. So we're keeping a close eye on the emergency powers, because if he loses those, you lose outdoor dining and you lose to-go alcohol, and we need to get a bill passed. So we're trying to work in conjunction with the governor's team and legislative to try to get those two things done. We're also looking at tax remittance, tax breaks, permits, meals and beverage tax, as well as asking for more small business grants beyond the 35 million. Is kind of our talk to the leaders as we move forward. So Juliana, I hope that answers your extended outdoor question. We try to make that a 2-year push here, as well as, looks like restaurants could be open for outdoor dining after 10 p.m. I think we want to kind of drop the curfew altogether, in my opinion, as we move forward. So sorry for the long-winded. I will take a breath and kind of turn it over to realistically the people you guys probably want to talk to more than me. But, just so I'll actually go back really quick so you guys have some headshots. I'll start with Wendell. So Wendell Davis is the New England Regional Administrator. He's been there since 2018. I'm being told that might be his last webinar, so you got the chance to join us. But Wendell has been a great part of really the region for the last few years, and being a great resource for all of our small businesses, but especially our restaurant industry. So I really appreciate, Wendell, you being on this morning. So good morning, Wendell.
Good morning, Scott. I got to tell you, I'm exhausted just from listening to you. I thought I was busy. Man, you've been busy, and you remind me of all the hurdles and challenges that the restaurant associations face. You kind of forget it in the midst of the pandemic, and you're out there just trying to help folks as best you can. But there's all kinds of fights that you guys got to undertake. I can, tell you, Scott, and I want to thank you for your leadership, because what we're finding in the data as we analyze the New England data is that those industry or those sectors, you mentioned the 72 NAICS code, those sectors that have active leadership with associations, that they perform a lot better on an uptake rate for PPP penetration. And Connecticut Restaurant Association and the Connecticut restaurant uptake is no exception, that the penetration rate is elevated in Connecticut relative to other states. So I want to thank you for your leadership in getting out there and making sure your members and all of the folks in the restaurant industry are aware of the variety of different federal programs out there. It was great to see the Connecticut programs that you cited. I know Catherine and I have worked closely with Commissioner Lehman's office in Glendale and doing what we can to help out in any way. And I agree. I hope there's more money to follow so we can help more and more businesses with grants. Just a quick, I think perspective is important. And when you look at what transpired over the first couple of rounds as we embark upon this new round of stimulus, in Connecticut, that NAICS code for restaurants in Connecticut received $373 million in that first couple of go-arounds. And just to put that in perspective, in a good year, the SBA, through its flagship 7A program, does about 160 to 170 million across every industry, every sector, every business. That's over the course of a year. The 373 million to restaurants was over the course of really a 12-week period, 8 to 12-week period this past summer. And while that number represents, on the one hand, it's really a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's been incredibly gratifying to be able to help and to have programs that help small businesses and restaurants in particular. On the other hand, we recognize that number represents a whole heck of a lot of hurt. And, Scott, we were talking offline earlier, and, pre-pandemic, there were amazing things going on in our economy, and restaurants were thriving, and there was just an amazing feeling out there for entrepreneurship, and we want to make sure that continues. And those discussions that we were having pre-pandemic have now turned, and we're talking about things like pivoting and adapting and overcoming, and in some cases, we're talking about survival, and those are not conversations any of us want to have. And so, we wanted to jump on a call today with you folks, and Scott, again, your leadership reaching out to us to get the latest and greatest information, and we want to make sure that your membership has all of the resources that are out there. If there's one thing that I would recommend and I would highlight, is that for the folks that are, sometimes it can be a complicated process. And again, the uptake level was amazing in Connecticut for restaurants. But for those folks that didn't partake in that first go around and found it a little bit difficult, you don't have to do it alone. Catherine has been an amazing leader. She joined the SBA this summer, and she's done an incredible job of jumping in and becoming amazingly knowledgeable about the programs and just doing incredible work in terms of outreach. And so her office is there in Connecticut. We have partners, women's business centers, our small business development centers, and SCORE folks. Those are all partners. And I know it's a 4-letter word on TV and perhaps webinars, but they're free, FREE. So there's no reason not to take advantage of that if you have any questions. And we just want to make sure that we're reaching everybody. And so thank you for this opportunity to reach out to your members. And again, Catherine's going to kind of go over some details, and we'll be able to answer a lot of the questions today, but there's some questions we may have to take back, to our folks at headquarters. So feel free to flood us with questions. Scott, email us. And Catherine's been incredibly great at getting back to folks. So thank you again. And I'm going to throw it back to you, Scott, so you can introduce them.
No, thank you, Wendell. Again, it's about partnership through this, as we talked about, and where we are. And I will quickly go back just so I get through my questions. A lot of people are hitting me up. I didn't talk about capacity limitations of private events and caterers. That is on the list of going to phase 3. Do I think we'll get back to 100 inside right away? I don't. I think it'll probably be more of a 50 or 75 range of that next step. But as you guys with weddings and your brides are freaking out in May and June about staying alive and making sure they can have that wedding, I would be very confident. The one piece, I want to make sure people understand is this is different than September and October when we were pushing so hard to go to phase 3. The difference is we now have a vaccine that plays a role here. So not only do we have numbers hopefully declining, we'll have a vaccine taking hold of the most vulnerable. So I'm hopeful that by May, we will be well beyond a phase 3 of indoor and outdoor, especially for both dining and for events. I know that part I did miss, and I apologize. But yes, banquet facilities and capacity is a part of the conversation without question. We'll keep pushing as hard as we can. So just want to answer that question. And now I will turn it over to Catherine. Like Wendell mentioned, Catherine took the job in the middle of a pandemic here in Connecticut and has done a phenomenal job. We've had a chance just to really only talk through email for the last couple weeks, but her responsiveness is incredible. And that's really what this is about today is understanding her team and the resources they have. They're here to help you. They're here, they might not know the answer directly. We made the big joke about the interim final rule, that there was 19 versions of it the first go round. So it really wasn't final. But they understand that they're always moving against the target with the SBA of language and how it's read legislatively and what it really means and how that affects your business and what numbers you got to provide. And that's changing by the hour, by the day. So Catherine, thank you so much for being on this morning and for your leadership here in Connecticut. So I will turn it over and I'll get to the start of your slides.
Great. Thank you, Scott. And thank you, Wendell, for that introduction. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. Here at SBA Connecticut, we are here to help you. There's a lot that's been passed in the President's bill that he signed on December 27th, 2020. I am just going to unpack the Paycheck Protection Program. There is a lot of other programs to unpack, and I will come back another day. Scott just touched on a few of them in his federal overview. But here today is an exciting day because the Paycheck Protection Program has reopened to all lenders in Connecticut. So we wanted to make sure we get this information out to you, answer your questions so that you can, get your process underway. Let's get the vaccine and let's get all back seated in your restaurants. So here is the relaunch overview. Again, all the information that I'm giving you is as of January 14th. We're going to talk about the key dates. We're going to explain the terminology first draw. We're going to explain the terminology second draw. We're going to give you some updates on forgiveness, and then we're going to give you some additional resources on what you can do. So let's go to the first date. So PPP actually started opening up last week. Why? Because we learned a lot in the first go around. We learned that there were communities that were underserved that did not have access to capital. So PPP relaunched again last week to some of our smaller banks, but right now we are opening up to all lenders. So this map here this timeline gives you, where we are, and today is January 19th, opened up to all lenders. Just like the first go around, you get a PPP loan through your lender. The important date is all applications need to be submitted March 31st. We try to encourage everyone to get it done as soon as they can, but that will be the deadline for this first and second draw. So what does first draw mean? What does the first draw mean, and who is eligible? So first of all, a lot of the same things, we're still, covering eligible expenses. However, we expanded those expenses because folks now have to, get their businesses PPE, put up the plexiglass, do other things for PPE. Unfortunately, some businesses had expenses dealing with unrest. Those are now covered. But the most important thing is that we increased additional entities. That doesn't count for the folks here on this restaurant call, but we did increase the entities that can take the PPP loans. And certain borrowers may actually request an increase to their first PPP loans. But most of all, what a PPP loan first draw is that if you didn't for some reason do a PPP in the first place, you get to do one now. So you must still comply with size standards. You must still have eligibility, and you must still prove your expenses that you are asking for. Again, this is the Restaurant Association, so you all were eligible the first time. You'll all be eligible again. Second draw. What does second draw mean? Second draw means
What
that
happened? You hurt yourself?
second draw means that if you received a PPP loan last spring, you use that money, whether you're in the forgiveness process right now or you're not yet in the forgiveness process, and you can show a 25% reduction in revenue, you can go for a second draw PPP. The most important thing for this group is that middle bullet. For borrowers in the accommodation and food service sector, your maximum amount for your second draw is 3.5 times your monthly average, up to $2 million. So kudos to you, but I know you have your challenges, and that it's been a tough go, but you have been have a set aside here for 3.5 times your average monthly payroll costs for your second draw PPP. As we talked about, if you go for your second draw, you don't have to be through the forgiveness process, but you do have to have used or will use all of your first PPP loan. The size restrictions for employees has been decreased because we want to try to go hit the smaller businesses. So the first PPP was 500. This next round of PPP is 300 employees or less. And as I mentioned, you have to demonstrate a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters. So that's Q1 of 19 to Q1 of 2020, or Q3 19 to QQ 2020. So those are just some specifics, but the reason for that is because we want folks who are going to go for this second draw, that they need that second draw. So this is specifically, it's not meant for you to do more hurdles. It's meant for us to be able to get the money to the small businesses that need it most. So we reduce the size. The maximum amount of the loan is $2 million. We reduce the size. The maximum amount of employees is 300. And now we're telling folks that you have to demonstrate need. So if you haven't done a PPP, you can, again, today go to the bank and apply for your first draw PPP. If you've already had a first draw PPP, you can go to the bank for your second draw PPP. If you're in the food and accommodations industry, it's 3.5 times your average cost. Forgiveness updates. Sorry, my computer's going crazy. Borrowers, forgiveness process. I don't know how many restaurants on this call have gone through the forgiveness process. But if you haven't gone through the forgiveness process, it's going to be easier if your first PPP loan was $150,000 or less. So right now we have a simplified version for $50,000 or less, but there's going to be a simplified version for $150,000 or less. That is not yet out. We've also expanded the forgiveness expenses, and as Scott mentioned, that the PPP loans are not taxable income, but also the expenses that you use for your PPP loans, now you can still deduct those expenses on your taxes. If anyone received idle advances, those are no longer deducted for your forgiveness payment. Question that always comes up. If you've already gone through your forgiveness payment and you've deducted those idle advances, those you will be made whole. There is a process through SBA to make you whole. So that's all the PPP forgiveness loan updates. What do you do now? So again, same as with the first time, PPP second draw, or if you're going for the first draw, you're going to go to your lender to get that. If you don't have a lender, we have a lender match, sba.gov/lender match, and you can see all of the lenders in the state of Connecticut. Additional resources. We have a tremendous amount of resource partners here in Connecticut. Wendell mentioned it. They are free. Don't do this alone. If you're a small restaurant, you don't have a CPA, you need some help, use our resource partners. They're there to help you. And always, we still don't have some of the information on the forgiveness. We're still waiting for it. The best way to get the information is to follow us on Twitter and sign up for updates. And we try to get the information out as soon as we get it from headquarters, no matter what hour. Here's my team. At SBA, I have 2 team members that are currently trying to answer questions on the chat box. Now I think I understand what all that noise is behind me. I think that's the chat box. So my team is here to help you. So here's our information. Don't hesitate to reach out, and we will do everything we can to serve the small businesses. And resource partners, I've talked about the resource partners. SBDC, they have a person in every chamber, and they will actually help you walk through what you need. The WBDC has 3 offices, and just because it has women's in the name, it does not matter your gender. They will help you. 2 more of our resource partners are the Entrepreneurial Center at the University of Hartford. There's their contact information, and SCORE. If you haven't ever talked to a SCORE chapter, really interesting. And for the folks on this call, once you get through the pandemic, you might actually be able to, join and be a mentor. They actually do mentor-mentees of people in the industry and can really give you some strategic business advice to get you through this pandemic. So I ran through a lot. There's still a lot of questions to answer. There's still a lot of detail. Want to give you a broad brush of what's going on with this PPP. Again, there's still more information to come out about, the shuttered venues grants. There's still more information to come out about some of the set-asides. There's still more information to come out about the idle advances. But the PPP is open today, first draw and second draw. And we're just thrilled to be here. But most importantly, we are here to serve you, our small businesses in the Connecticut. So thank you very much, Scott.
Thanks, Catherine. I know I'm watching the chat box go crazy as well.
Well, I couldn't figure out what that noise was, and now I understand.
So just a couple of overarching questions, Catherine. I don't know how you can answer this, but when they apply for the second draw and they have to show that hardship, is that do they have to do that immediately, or what materials are they providing to their bank through the SBA, or is that after the fact they've gotten approved? And then how's that process work differently? Because obviously you have to show hardship this time.
Right, you have to show hardship, so you have to have those numbers ahead of time. And you're not going to have your tax returns obviously done. It's a quarter-to-quarter basis, so you have to have that documentation with you when you go to the bank.
Okay.
And someone asked if you can apply for the first draw and the second draw at the same time. And my team member, John Shu, correctly answered that question. No, you cannot do both of those at the same time.
Yeah,
Sure.
Catherine, there was a question about shuttered venues. I don't know if this is the forum to discuss that, but someone asked about shuttered venues. I don't know if you want to address that today or save that for another time.
Scott, do you want me just to quickly give you 3 sentences on shuttered venues?
I think it'd be great, because I think the majority of our people on here aren't going to be eligible, but just to give a sense of what you guys are targeting with that program and who's able to apply would be great.
Yeah, and that voice was my team member, Anthony Price. I'm just very, very fortunate to have fantastic team at Connecticut SBA. Shuttered venues grants are grants to very specific entities. There are very long definitions in the legislation, and we are still waiting for a lot of information on the shuttered venues. I'll give you 2 points. One, it's not open yet. Two, we are going to get advanced notice when it gets open. So it's not like I'm going to call Scott and say, hey, tomorrow morning, shuttered venues is going to be opening. We're going to have, a little bit of a runway for that program. That program specifically will prioritize venues and organizations that have been severely hit. So there is a priority level, 70%, and then it goes down, and the last priority is the 25%. The most important thing for the people on this call is, if you think the definition fits you in some way, you cannot apply for both the shuttered venues and the second draw PPP. Okay, so you have to make a choice if for some reason you fit in that category. So if you fit in that category and and your revenues are only 25% reduced, which is, I know most people's are not, you might be better off just going for the PPP. Again, do your math. But shuttered venues, we don't know the information yet. It is a grant program, very specific definitions for the venues. We'll get a lead time on it. You cannot do the shuttered venues and the second draw PPP. However, if you got the first draw, if you did the first one last spring, you can still do it. So that's just, sort of the cliff notes of the shuttered venue program.
No, perfect, Catherine. And I see that Emily in the chat box put up the link, more details about the actual program, the SVO, Shuttered Venues Operators Grant Program. I think definitely take a peek at it for some of you, and I think the majority of the folks on here, I know what you guys define a venue versus what this grant program is defining a venue is a little bit different. So understanding that and making sure, you don't miss out on applying on a PPP because you just say, hey, I'm a venue and I'm shuttering. Like, I've been shuttered. Like, there's definitely specific information that's already put up there as they try to open up. The program hasn't been open yet, but making sure that they know that going forward. But I know you guys have had some webinars and stuff to the SBA website on that program. I think there was a call last week, which you guys went through some more details, which we can try to share for the CRA standpoint for people that want to answer those questions. Another question, not to put you, Catherine, on the spot, but I guess maybe, I talked to some of your team members about this as well. And we talked a little about the businesses that opened kind of late 19, early 2020, being ineligible for some of the state grants. But I saw the language in there that says if you open prior to February 15th, and maybe Anthony or John might be able to answer this, you are eligible for the second draw. But my question is, where do you show hardship? And I don't even know if that's been fully defined yet, of how you show hardship, because, that would be, you're only been open for, let's say you open on February 5th. You were only open in 2020, so you have no quarter comparison of 19. So has that length of detail for maybe a business that opened in January, February, or even December of 19, to be able to do a comparison quarter, how that's playing out yet with the SBA? Do you guys have any update on that?
There must be guidance in it. I have not, I do not have that guidance memorized, that particular portion, because I agree with you that there's a logic factor there. John or Anthony, do you have that, or is that something we'll have to get back to folks on?
Perfect. John's answering questions as you speak, Catherine. You got a great team.
There we go.
If you started your business prior to 2/15, you can compare quarter 1 of 20 versus quarter 4 of 20 to see if you're 25% down in sales, which hopefully that's the case. So John, thank you for answering my question.
Kudos to John.
Thank you.
And then I guess that, and this is more for us. So making sure, guys, that the biggest thing is if you received the PPP the first time, you're going for a second draw. If you had not, if you went after the ERTC the first time, you would apply for the first draw of PPP because you never received it. So understanding that, and the first draw of PPP application, because we at the CRA are applying because we weren't eligible the first time. There's not the hardship information right now in there for that process, but where you have to show that in the second draw as you work with your banks. And I know I saw Webster and Bank of America they're all opening their portals this morning and this afternoon to get you guys to apply. I think another big piece to this, as Catherine can attest to it, everyone's very anxious right now and worried about the money running out and drying up. There's $285 billion, $284 billion that was put into this program. Remember that the maximum grant amount is $2 million versus 10, and in the second draw you have to show hardship, which even there's restaurants on here that cannot find that hardship. So understand this program is built towards the small businesses that have been hurt. And my goal here is, I think Wendell brought up $373 million when the restaurants went for PPP. I want to see that again, if not more, because we get 3.5 times. Like, I want to be a leader in a state to make sure. That's why this call is so important. Everyone's applying. First go around, if you were afraid to do it the first time, or you're working on your second draw, these dollars matter to you. I understand that. And the other big piece to this is with the Flexibility Act. A lot of you guys got the PPP early on when it was 8 weeks. And by the time it changed to 24, you only had about 2 weeks left of your money. And a lot of you guys, it didn't work out. This is totally different. You have the 60-40 and you have 20, you can go up to 24 weeks with these dollars, which realistically puts us somewhere in July, where maybe we're in a better place with the pandemic and what our restaurants are doing. And also there's still a lot of language on the 40% of how you can use it. It's not just utilities and rent and rent, mortgage, utilities pieces. You can use it on PPE. You can use it on other things within our industry that is, we have a full list. I'm sure that SBA is going to put one of their final rules of all the things you can do. But please make sure that you use these dollars to the best of your ability and you stretch it out, because as much as I'd love to open us all back up, our goal right now is to get as many restaurants, caterers as possible. Go ahead, Catherine.
When I have a hard stop at 2 because I have another webinar.
Yeah.
But a couple things. Number one, someone asked about shutter venues. How are they supposed to know the definition? The definition is out there on sba.gov/coronavirus. However, I understand that you don't want to be pushed to another website. So email us here at the Connecticut office and we'll try to help you out with that one. But it's mostly, there's certain parameters, meaning you have to be a live venue. You have to, do certain amount of ticket sales. I mean, there's some real serious parameters that I think folks can pretty much, say whether they are a live venue or not, because that is really a, shuttered for live venues, museums, zoos, aquariums. So that was very specific legislation there.
Yeah, and Catherine, I know that person, that's Al asking you those questions at Power Station. So Al, good to see you this morning, at least through chat. I think it's something you want to look at, but I know a little bit of your business model. I think the challenge with it is you're not the venue, you're actually the people that are bringing all the equipment in and doing that. I don't think that maybe fits you. So probably second draw the PPP, but again, reach out to Catherine's team and make sure, the last thing I want to do is lead anybody down a path that's not the correct one for them. So you want to do your due diligence by asking all these questions, which is great, to figure out the best solution for your business and how you move forward. So, that just came out and how that works.
Right. And then the other thing, Scott, too, is I'm watching, these are really, really very specific questions. And we're here to help all those people. If they follow us on Twitter, you're going to see that not only the Connecticut SBA, but our resource partners, we have, opportunities to ask questions almost any day in and day and night. And tomorrow, if there's anybody here on the call that is primarily a Spanish-speaking individual, we actually have a webinar for the Spanish community tomorrow night at 6. So check out our Twitter, and that's how you'll get the direct link to sign up for these other webinars.
And then, Catherine, just a quick question. I know you brought up the 150,000 forgivable form that's not official final yet, but will that be for both? So let's just say someone hasn't forgiven their original PPP. Will they be able to use that form? So should they wait? If let's say they got 110,000 and they haven't done it yet, is it probably going to be easier than going through the minutia of being over 50 grand at the current process until that form? That was a question someone asked me last week and I didn't really have some clarity.
Sure, I can give you the information that I have and you can make that decision, right? I can't make the decision for you, but I'll give you the information that I have. Number one, if you look at the form, the forgiveness form for under 50,000 right now, it's very, very simple. I can't tell you that the under 150,000 is going to be that simple, but I think it's going to go towards that direction. No matter what form you're using for forgiveness, you have to have the documentation to back up all your information. So yes, first draw and second draw, 150,000 form will be simpler. Is it out yet? No, it's not. Should you wait? That's up to you. You can take a look at the form that exists for the 50,000 right now to get an idea of what maybe it might look like.
Sure. Love that answer, Catherine. That's what I give all the time. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to give you the best answer I can. You got to make that business decision. And I think it's right. But yeah, I think the good thing is, as you guys see, the SBA with the forgivable forms, making it streamlined, easier. I think anybody on this call, Catherine made a great point about, Spanish speaking or other challenges. We're here to help. The SBA team is here to help you make sure that you get all your questions answered. You shouldn't be in fear of taking out a loan that is really 100% forgivable if you're doing it right. In our industry specifically, using your payroll and using this 40% and doing it right, it should be a full forgivable opportunity for your business to survive. And that's why we're here. And I know not every question is going to be answered today.
And don't walk alone. You've already tried to adapt. You've done the best you can. We have resource partners that the SBA funds specifically to help you walk you through this process. So don't do it alone. We're all eating as much takeout as we can.
Yes.
Let us help you. Let us help you.
Love it, Catherine. I know you have to run. So we'll kind of get off this thing quickly, but any additional questions you guys have for her team, there's contacts here, but also you can send us direct contacts to Yvette, Emily, and Jennifer on my team as we continue to move the ball forward here. I really, really appreciate Catherine and your entire team for being out here answering these questions today and helping our industry. It means a lot. I know Catherine talked about you and her husband supporting so many businesses, around the Hartford area, being from New London originally. Tell me some of your favorite stops. I will not tell people some of her favorite restaurants, not to hold anybody. There are some on here, which is great. But listen, we're all in this together. That was the purpose of this. These are, whatever anybody needs as we move the ball forward. We're here to help as an association, and we'll continue to keep you guys posted as we go forward with updates. And we'll talk to everybody soon. So thanks again, Catherine, John, Anthony, Emily. I know Wendell had to hop off. Thank you guys so much for your time today, and we'll talk to everybody soon.